Hi everyone, so today I'll be reviewing a Star Wars novel entitled Phasma by Delilah S. Dawson. Delilah S. Dawson is also the same author who wrote The Perfect Weapon and The Black Spire. So a lot of fans point out that Phasma is quite an underutilized character from the movie. If you're interested in finding out whether this novel will be able to salvage that, please stay tuned. I would like to point out that part of this review does contain spoilers, but before it started, I would let you guys know, so if you're not comfortable with that, you can sign off this video. Now that I get all the basic information out of the way, let's just get started. I will begin this review with the synopsis. So Leia sent one of her resistance spies to check any activities on the First Order. The resistance spy then captured and then eventually taken to the Star Destroyer Absolution. She is then interrogated by Cardinal, who is a First Order captain who wears a special red stormtrooper armor. Cardinal then finds out the resistance spy actually has a crucial information regarding his rival, Phasma, and so he decided to conduct the interrogation secretly from the First Order. So as the synopsis suggests, the story actually written in a way that is only dancing around Phasma. So in this book, Phasma is not really a character that is involved in the story. It is a story about Phasma that is told from the testimony of other characters. Some might say that the story is a little bit odd. It's structured a little bit weird. It's almost like listening to a gossip about Phasma rather than a story that involves Phasma herself. We get a lot of Phasma characterization through the discussion from other characters like Cardinal, the resistance spy, and even Phasma's fellow warrior before she joined the First Order. Now, I could see that there is an advantage to writing a story in this way, especially about Phasma, because Phasma's intrigue for a lot of people is how she is very mysterious, almost like First Order. However, I could also see that this form of storytelling could get a little bit confusing to some readers, especially if you don't read this book in a one go or a short period of time. And I do think that mainly happens because in here there are a lot of back and forth between the current moment of Phasma versus the flashback of Phasma on her home planet Parnassus before she joined the First Order. So because there's a lot of time jumps like this, reader really needs to focus on the time setting where the story sets. Regarding the pacing of the story, I could see that it is a little bit dragging, especially during the beginning. There isn't that much happening at all until a point that involves the First Order basically. And even after the First Order element came in, the book could still feel dragged sometimes. There's some parts that's just a bit repetitive, a bit redundant. The story is definitely trying to show Phasma is someone who is ruthless, but there's just a little too much instances of that. For example, we literally have 3 examples to show that Phasma is a ruthless character. I do think like at least cutting one of them would send a message to the reader already. Although could see a bit of a positive point from that, because a lot of times stories doesn't really show when a character is described in a certain way. When a character is described to have trait A, writers might just leave it at that. But this one, that problem, we don't really find it. In contrast, the author kind of overextended showing instead of telling. Perhaps it is one of the author's way to salvage the way that the story is being written. As I've mentioned, the story is being written like hearing a gossip about Phasma. So the author might have that worry that we don't really get her through her action. But I do think that in this case, the example could be shortened a bit. As for the cast, there's quite a lot of characters in this, and I would say that not half of them are worth mentioning, but of course there are some, so I would talk about them just a little bit. So Phasma is supposed to be the titular character of the story, and I don't really feel that she is serving the title well. And I figured that this happens because the story is written in a way that only surrounds Phasma. I don't really feel that intimacy with her as a character. All I can derive from this book is that Phasma is a cold-blooded killer who is very self-serving, but because I don't really get that access of her head, I don't think like the book really provides much of her own perspective. I don't truly understand the depth of her character. Sure, the story was able to answer some questions about her, why, for example, she lowered the shield during the First Awakens. But for a 400 pages story, I do think that this novel could provide us more than that. Yes, we get that she is ruthless, but is there anything more about her than that? The second character that I believe is worth mentioning is Captain Cardinal. So I do find that his character is probably the most interesting in here. At the beginning, I was quite skeptical about him because, well, what is the difference between Cardinal and Phasma? Because they're both basically are self-serving employees who will turn against the First Order in a heartbeat in order to serve their self-serving purpose. Both of them had a history of not adhering to the First Order protocols, like Phasma with the shield, and Cardinal basically interrogates the Resistance spy in secret. But as the story goes on, the book really provides I do think like a pretty strong reason why Cardinal is doing what he's doing. I can't really tell you what it is, but I do think that the reason makes sense for Cardinal as a character, and the book also provides a context of Cardinal's backstory. So one of the strong points in this book, maybe Phasma is not really a character that is explained well enough in this book. This book, in my opinion, provides a pretty decent story when it comes to the origin of Captain Cardinal. But at the same time, when I have to compare Cardinal and Phasma, I really feel like Phasma's character doesn't really have an arc. For example, Phasma has been someone who is self-serving individual and wouldn't hesitate to kill for her selfish goal from the beginning. And Phasma's characterization just stays that way from the beginning of the book until the end, and we don't really have that explanation why she's like that, why she is as ruthless as she is today. It's as if we just have to believe that she's born that way and that's it. I do think that this form of characterization just really dismiss the nurture element of someone's personality, and then they just focus on our nature element, as if like if you were born this way, then you are that way, and then the environment that surrounds you doesn't really affect who you are, which is quite an extreme approach in making a character. On the other hand, Cardinal's characterization definitely has a journey in it, from how he was a young boy from a barren wasteland, and then how he joins the First Order, he finds his purpose, and then of course later on how his loyalty with the Order kind of trembles because he finds out the politics of the Order is not necessarily something that matches with his internal values, and how he has this inner struggle on finding out that the Order is not something that he thought before. So I feel like this novel could have just basically been retitled Captain Cardinal then Captain Phasma. There's also the character of the Resistance spy, Vi Moradi, and also Sif, Phasma's fellow warrior when she was in her home planet. Now, I couldn't really connect with these two characters because I just feel like they are here in order to gossip about Phasma and tell the readers about Phasma's characterization, but at the same time, that method didn't really work either because it was too much of a jumble. So I was kind of expecting that they will have a more active role in the story, but they don't really have that much. After I talked about the characterization, I would like to touch upon the theme of this book. So there's definitely two main themes at least. The first one that is very noticeable is survival. Both Phasma and Cardinal, the reason why they're having this rival moment with each other is just because they will want to survive. And of course, survival does not only entails both of these characters when they are in the First Order, but also when they are in their respective home planet, Phasma in Farnassos and Cardinal when he was in Jakku. Aside from survival, there's also the theme of loyalty, especially misplaced loyalty. How Phasma is basically so loyal to herself to the point that she basically turned this into an individual who doesn't care about any others besides herself. And also, of course, Cardinal's trembling loyalty with the First Order. I do think that both of this theme really ties well with both of the characters, even though with Phasma, I don't feel like her character is fleshed out too well, but with the things that are provided in the book, at least that will be able to ties in the theme, the overarching theme as a whole quite neatly. While the characterization of this book is a little bit lacking, I do think that the world building that Delilah as Dawson provides is really interesting to read. So I do think that she did a good job in creating the world of Parnassus, especially how she's quite in-depth in exploring its condition, culture, how there are clans. It's very fun to read. And I really feel like it is a novel that sets in Star Wars. So I do think one of the most important element in a Star Wars story is, of course, its setting. And the setting is really Star Warsy. This novel shows us there's like a religious ceremony. There's also many race of aliens that is explored, and also different technologies. There's a little bit of that Mad Max feel regarding this novel, so if you are looking for a Star Wars novel that has that element, you might enjoy this as well. One critique that I might be able to render for the world building though is probably the lack of the First Order, and especially the title itself is about Phasma. And even if I would be able to argue that the title could be changed to Captain Cardinal, the element of First Order still needs to be there. It is a very relevant element to the story. So I expected that there would be a difference between the First Order and the Empire. I wish that there would be new sides of the First Order that we didn't really get to see, or a really different system that the First Order has from the Empire. It kind of feels like the First Order here is just a parody version of the Empire. If you're looking for that nitty-gritty regarding like the culture, even like the history regarding the Order, you will not find it here. There's only just a teeny tiny bit name dropping of race alone, and that's that. And even that name dropping is quite ambiguous. Like, we don't even know that she's alive or not. So perhaps I would now then get into my... Well, I already had a critic regarding the character, so probably this is going to be like my second major critic. And it's probably going to be the way that the new canon novels has a problem of not really have a courage to make a story. They would instead try to play it safe and create like an episodic scenario instead of a full-fledged story. So we don't really get that much of a tension, that much of like a high-stakes situation in here. If we want to get that, we actually need to watch the movie. People comment that the new Star Wars canon novel tend to have less stake. That problem also applies in here. So if you want to read this, please take that into your consideration as well. So if you ask me whether I recommend this book or not, it really depends. If you are just looking for maybe like a light story with a very low to medium stakes, I think you will enjoy this. But if you have a lot of expectation, like you are going to understand Phasma through and through, I don't think this will provide you that. So that was today's review of Phasma by Delilah S. Dawson. I hope that this review will help you in determining whether this book is worth your time. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below, whether you're planning to read this book or if you've read this book. Please share your thought as well. I would like to sign off for now, but before that, I would like to thank everyone who made it to the end. Thank you guys so much for watching, and may you never leave Mozaspa.